The story begins on a remote island where there are no signs of life except for a single lighthouse. We meet a man named Mason who has been living there completely alone for more than 10 years. We learn that he's a former soldier who has been hiding from British intelligence. Mason stands inside the lighthouse as if he's waiting for something. A few moments later, he spots a boat approaching the island, so he heads down to meet it from a distance. On the boat is a young woman named Jessie and her uncle, who always brings her close to the island so she can leave Mason's weekly supplies. Every time Jessie drops off the supplies, she also leaves a small gift because she enjoys making people happy. She always hopes she'll get the chance to talk to Mason and learn something about him. Meanwhile, Mason watches everything from a distance. Once he's sure they've left, he walks over, takes the supplies, and leaves the gift behind. After that, he goes back inside, drinks a large amount of alcohol, sits with his dog, feeds it, and eats his own meal. He spends his free time playing chess and listening to the news. It's the same routine every single day. He's completely consumed by loneliness and feels like his life has no purpose anymore. A few weeks later, Jessie and her uncle return once again. Jessie is excited to find out what Mason thought about the gift, even though she still has no idea what he looks like or what kind of person he is. As soon as they arrive, her uncle tells her to hurry because another storm is approaching. When Jessie notices that Mason isn't outside, she walks up to the lighthouse and knocks on the door. Mason wakes up, opens the door, and takes the supplies from her. Jessie refuses to leave and tries to give him the gift again, but he turns it down. She blames him for treating them so coldly even though they bring him supplies every week, and says that he acts as if he's better than everyone else. Without saying a word, Mason shuts the door in her face and ignores her. Jessie gets angry and keeps knocking on the door while Mason listens from inside. Eventually, she leaves the gift outside and rushes back toward the boat before the storm gets worse. Meanwhile, Mason goes on with his day as usual, completely unaware of how powerful the storm is about to become. Jessie's uncle is already waiting for her and tells her to get on the boat as quickly as possible. But the storm becomes extremely violent. Massive waves crash into the boats, Jessie's boat flips over, and her uncle's boat sinks as well. Mason's dog suddenly senses that something is wrong and alerts him. Mason looks outside, sees the boat sinking, runs to his garage, jumps into his own boat, and heads straight into the storm. Jessie struggles to save herself, but one of the ropes gets wrapped around her leg. She can't break free and starts sinking with the boat. Mason dives into the water, swims toward her, cuts the rope from around her leg, and discovers that her uncle is already dead. He rescues Jessie, brings her back to the house, and lays her down while she's still unconscious. That night, Jessie wakes up and immediately asks about her uncle. Mason tells her that he died and that he couldn't save him. Jessie breaks down in tears and spends the entire night crying, while Mason quietly sits nearby, not knowing what to do. The next morning, Mason hears her crying out in pain because of the wound on her leg. He wraps it with a cold cloth to reduce the swelling. Jessie tells him that she wants to leave because she's afraid of him. Mason replies that she can't leave the island. Jessie starts feeling as if she's being held captive, but Mason ignores her complaints. She gets angry and threatens him, saying that her family will come looking for her. Mason calmly tells her that all of her family members are dead and that her uncle was the last one left. Jessie is shocked that he knows so much about her life. Mason leaves the room and Jessie tries to walk despite her injury. She searches the kitchen for something to protect herself with, finds a knife, and hides it beside her bed. Later, when she hears Mason coming back, she gets scared and quickly lies down as if nothing happened. Mason notices what she did, but chooses to ignore it. That night, Jessie has a nightmare. Mason sits beside her, and she immediately points the knife at him, thinking he might hurt her. Instead, Mason calmly shows her how to hold the knife without being afraid and leaves it with her so she can feel safe. A little later, he checks the wound on her leg and realizes that it's become infected and needs proper treatment. From that moment on, Mason starts helping Jessie with even the simplest things. He helps her get to the bathroom, assists her whenever she needs to move around, and cooks every meal for her himself. We also learn that Mason has a talent for painting, which he spends his free time doing. As time passes, Mason notices that Jessie has become comfortable around him and spends most of her time playing with the dog. That makes him happy, and he realizes that he's becoming attached to her as well. Later, Jessie plays a game of chess with Mason and asks him how he knew her uncle. Mason tells her that they served together in the British military during the same period. She then asks him what the dog's name is. To her surprise, Mason tells her that he has never even thought about giving it one. Jessie smiles and decides to name the dog Jack. Later, Mason checks Jessie's injured leg again and realizes that the infection has become much worse and that she urgently needs medicine, so he decides to travel to the city to get the treatment, gets into his boat, and leaves the island. While Mason is away, Jessie looks through his drawings and is amazed by them. She's even happier when she notices that he finally opened the gift she had been leaving for him. Meanwhile, Mason arrives in the city and walks into the nearest medical supply store. He keeps his face hidden from the security cameras. At the same time, a meeting is taking place between the British Prime Minister and Manafort, Mason's former commander and the head of a secret intelligence program. The Prime Minister blames him for leaking classified information information, but Manafort defends himself, saying that no data was leaked and that the program has been helping the police and intelligence agencies stop potential threats. She responds that citizens' personal data has been compromised and informs him that the program is being shut down and placed under investigation. After the meeting, she speaks with him privately and tells him that the situation has become extremely dangerous because the election is approaching. She says he needs to disappear from public view and that his deputy Roberta will take over his position. Manafort agrees and leaves. On his way back, Mason buys some new clothes for Jesse. As he's leaving the store, a group of girls take a selfie nearby and Mason accidentally appears in the background of the picture. The image is uploaded into the British intelligence facial recognition system, where Mason's face is automatically detected and matched with a wanted fugitive. Roberta immediately orders her team to track down his location. When Mason returns to the island, he gives Jesse the medicine along with the new clothes. Jesse tries them on and is very happy. That night, they prepare dinner and sit down to eat together. Suddenly, Mason hears a strange sound and immediately senses that something is wrong. When he looks outside, he spots a boat approaching with armed soldiers on board. He instantly realizes they found his location. Mason tells Jesse to stay inside the house and leaves the dog with her before heading out to face them. He waits until the soldiers come ashore, then activates his first trap. One soldier walks straight into it and Mason cuts the rope, killing him instantly. He then drags another soldier into the sea. After that, Mason switches on an extremely powerful light, blinding the rest of the soldiers and causing them to fire their weapons wildly in every direction. One soldier reaches the top of the lighthouse, but Mason appears behind him, throws gasoline over him, and sets him on fire. Another soldier is pushed off the top and falls to his death. Meanwhile, one of the soldiers breaks into the house. The dog attacks him, but the soldier kills it before kidnapping Jesse. At the same time, Mason catches another soldier, hangs him from a hook, and kills him. A moment later, he realizes that one of the soldiers has managed to capture Jesse. Mason immediately shoots him, kills him, and makes sure Jesse is safe. After that, Mason heads to the surveillance cameras that have been monitoring the operation and disables them. He tells Jesse to wait for him. When Mason returns to the house, he discovers that his dog has been killed. He's devastated by what he sees. He picks up his phone, calls someone he knows, and tells him that his location has been exposed and that he'll be coming to see him soon. After ending the call, Mason takes Jesse with him, and before they leave, he quietly tells her that the dog is dead. At the intelligence headquarters, they discover that every soldier sent to the island has been killed. They immediately realize they're dealing with someone extremely dangerous, so the leadership decides to bring in their best field operative. There's only one man for the job. His name is James Workman, and he's immediately assigned to the mission. Meanwhile, Mason and Jesse arrive in the city. Mason quickly starts looking for a vehicle they can escape in. He spots a parked car and tries to get inside, searching for the keys. Before leaving, he hands Jesse a gun, tells her to keep it with her, protect herself until he comes back, and quickly explains how to use it. Mason then enters the nearby house through the front door and starts searching for the car keys. The homeowner's son sees him inside and becomes frightened. A few moments later, the father walks in carrying a gun and points it at Mason. Before anything happens, Jesse rushes in, points her gun at the father, and tells him to let them go. The man agrees and decides to help them. At the same time, back at intelligence headquarters, the team discovers that the records of a man named Timor have been professionally altered. Whoever changed them clearly had the skills to access the system without being detected. As they investigate further, they uncover the man's real identity. His real name is Michael Mason, a former British Special Forces soldier. However, all of his records are classified and they require a much higher security clearance to access them. Roberta orders the team to keep digging. Just then, intelligence receives a report about a man breaking into a house in the area. They suspect it could be Mason. Meanwhile, Manafort returns home and turns on a private system that allows him to access the intelligence network. After reading the latest reports, he becomes deeply concerned because he knows Mason very well. He immediately contacts Workman through an encrypted message, orders him to find the target and eliminate him, then asks about the girl and tells him to kill both of them. It's clear that Manafort wants revenge on Mason before British intelligence uncovers the truth. Back at the house, the homeowner helps treat Mason's wound. When he's finished, Mason asks if he can borrow the man's car so they can escape. The man agrees, but before they can leave, they discover that the man's son has already called the police and officers have arrived outside. There's no longer enough time to escape. The homeowner says he'll go outside and speak with the police. The moment he steps outside, a single bullet hits him, killing him instantly. It turns out the shot came from Workman, whose mission is to eliminate anyone who gets in his way. Roberta sees what happened and becomes extremely concerned because she has no idea who's firing the shots or where they're coming from. Mason steps outside to face the police. Using his skills, he quickly takes control of the situation, stops the officers, steals a police car, and escapes. Roberta is shocked to realize that Workman is ignoring her orders and has started chasing Mason on his own because he wants to kill him himself. A high-speed chase begins. Workman repeatedly rams Mason's car, trying to flip it over while firing his handgun. Mason suddenly turns onto a narrow road leading into the forest, where the rough terrain makes it difficult to drive. A few moments later, Mason suddenly stops his car, waits for Workman to get directly in front of him, then crashes into his vehicle. Workman's car flips over. Mason takes advantage of the opportunity, drives away, reaches another garage, switches to a different vehicle, and continues his journey. At the same time, we discover that Workman is still alive. A passing car stops to help him, along with a police vehicle, but Workman kills everyone, takes one of the cars, and continues the pursuit. Meanwhile, Roberta calls Manafort and asks him what's really going on and why this operation has turned into such a strange manhunt. At first, Manafort denies having anything to do with it, but a moment later, he admits that years ago there was a secret program called Elite Agents, and Mason was one of its members. He also reveals that Mason is the only surviving agent from the last mission. Manafort tells Roberta to forget about capturing Mason and says he'll deal with him his own way. After that, Roberta goes to the technical analyst and asks her to uncover more information about the last mission that Manafort refuses to discuss. The analyst manages to access highly classified files. At the same time, Manafort is watching everything from his office. He becomes very upset after realizing that Roberta has started to suspect him. Meanwhile, Jesse asks Mason about his past and whether he has any family. She tells him that she really wants to know. Mason replies that his life is complicated. Jesse begins to realize that they have a lot in common because neither of them has a family anymore. Mason promises her that he'll try to give her a better life than the one she's been living and won't let her lose hope. A short time later, they arrive at a church. Mason tells Jesse to keep her face hidden from the security cameras because they're being tracked. Even so, the cameras still capture them. The alert reaches Manafort before it reaches British intelligence, allowing him to remove it before anyone else sees it. He immediately sends Mason and Jesse's location to Workman and orders him to eliminate them. Meanwhile, Mason enters the church and meets an old friend. He asks him for a favor, and his friend agrees. He takes Mason and Jesse to a safe house. After they arrive, Mason assures Jesse that she's safe there and tells her she's free to use anything in the house. He then asks her to leave them alone for a few minutes so they can talk privately. Mason tells his friend that Jesse is related to someone who was very important to him and served with him years ago. He explains that he plans to get her to a safe place with a new identity so she can start a different life, and that he needs his friend's help to make it happen. While they're talking, Jesse notices a large number of medications inside the house. From the medicine, she realizes that Mason's friend has cancer. At the same time, Mason tries to figure out how the intelligence services managed to find him even though he had completely hidden his identity from the system. He discovers that someone linked his identity to a dangerous terrorist and placed him on the wanted list. Mason suspects that Manafort is behind everything because he wants revenge after Mason broke the rules years ago and refused to kill an innocent man. His friend tells him that the situation has become extremely dangerous. Now that everyone knows Mason is still alive, they will never stop hunting him. He also warns Mason that keeping Jesse with him will only put her in greater danger, especially after Manafort saw her with him. Mason asks his friend to let Jesse stay there, but his friend refuses. Jesse then tells Mason that his friend is suffering from cancer. She realizes that their plans are changing and becomes upset, thinking Mason is about to leave her behind. His friend tells Mason that he'll help as much as he can. He also tells him about a man named Kamal, a professional smuggler who is the only person capable of helping him now. Mason asks where he can find Kamal, and his friend gives him the location. Later, Mason sits down with Jesse and asks her to trust him. He promises that he'll never abandon her. Suddenly, Mason notices movement outside the house and quietly tells Jesse not to make a sound. Workman arrives at the house, and Mason is already waiting for him. As soon as Workman enters, Mason opens fire with his handgun, but Workman is highly trained. Mason manages to hit him and knock the gun away, and a fierce fight breaks out between them. Because of Mason's injuries and his slower movements, Workman comes close to killing him. Jesse grabs the gun and points it at Workman, but he attacks her and takes it away. Mason takes advantage of the moment, pulls Jesse toward him, and the two of them rush to the car and escape. Before they leave, Mason's friend tells him that Workman knows him personally and wants revenge. Meanwhile, Manafort learns that Workman still hasn't killed Mason, so he orders a larger force to be prepared. Before Mason leaves, his friend tells him that he'll stay in contact from a distance and help whenever he can. He says goodbye to Jesse, and they leave. On the way, Jesse says she regrets not killing Workman when she had the chance. She tells Mason that she could have become as skilled as he is. Mason replies that she'll never become like him because he's done many things that he still regrets to this day. He tells her that she'll have a different life with a new identity in another place. Jesse realizes that he doesn't plan on staying with her. She becomes very upset and refuses to accept it. Mason tells her that he's staying away because he doesn't want to bring more trouble into her life. Jesse refuses to leave him. Mason gets angry and tells her to listen to him because it's the only way she'll be safe. That night, they arrive in London and head to the nightclub where Kamal can be found. Mason gets out of the car knowing that security cameras are watching him, but he doesn't care. At the same time, Roberta asks the technical analyst to monitor Manafort. She discovers discovers an unauthorized system access outside Manafort's clearance level and immediately orders all of his access privileges to be suspended. Meanwhile, Mason reaches the nightclub security guards, beats them, and forces them to take him to Kamal. At the same time, Manafort receives a facial recognition alert. He tries to delete it, but the system blocks him. Everyone finally realizes that Manafort has been manipulating the system the entire time. The police are immediately deployed. Mason meets Kamal and tells him that he needs his help to smuggle Jesse out of the country and create new identities for both of them. Kamal asks what he'll get in return. Mason replies that he'll finally finish the mission that's been unfinished for 10 years by getting rid of Manafort once and for all. Kamal agrees to help and moves them to another temporary safe location. Jesse asks Mason to come with her, but he promises that he has to finish his mission first and then he'll join her. Jesse understands that this means he may never come back because no one is waiting for him and no one is worried about him. She begs Mason to leave everything behind and come with her, but he refuses and insists on finishing what he started. Meanwhile, at British intelligence headquarters, Roberta orders officers to be sent to the nightclub immediately to arrest Mason before Manafort reaches him. At the same time, Manafort orders his men to kill Mason and Jesse as quickly as possible. He tells them that Jesse is Mason's biggest weakness. A short time later, Kamal brings Mason the new identities and tells him that the boat will arrive in 30 minutes, reminding him that he must keep his promise to eliminate Manafort. Mason agrees. Manafort's men arrive first, while Roberta watches everything unfold and becomes increasingly worried. As Mason steps outside, he immediately senses that something is wrong and realizes he'll have to deal with them first. He quietly starts taking down Manafort's men one after another. Soon, chaos breaks out. Mason grabs Jesse and tries to escape, but they're surrounded and shot at. Manafort's men manage to kidnap Jesse and take her out of the nightclub. Mason quickly calls his friend, who tells him which route they took and exactly what vehicle they escaped in. On his way out, Mason runs into the police. He fights his way through them, escapes, catches up with Manafort's men, kills them, rescues Jesse, and assures her that they're safe. At that moment, Workman spots them. Mason immediately takes Jesse to the harbor so she can escape. The boat finally arrives, and it's time to say goodbye. Jesse tries to convince Mason to stay with her. She breaks down in tears and begs him not to leave her, but Mason knows this is the only way she'll ever have a safe life. Suddenly, gunshots ring out. Mason pushes Jesse aside and faces Workman. The two exchange gunfire until they both run out of ammunition. Then they engage in one final hand-to-hand fight. Mason grabs a chain and strikes Workman with it until he finally dies. The next day, Manafort is inside his heavily guarded mansion, but he's shocked to discover that every guard has already been killed. Mason walks in. Manafort tries to convince him to return and work with him again so they can become an unstoppable force. Mason refuses. He quietly kills Manafort and walks away. 3 months later, Jesse is sitting in a restaurant in Spain reading a book. British intelligence is secretly watching her, hoping Mason will appear, but he never does. A moment later, the camera pulls back, revealing that a chess piece has been sent to Jesse by Mason. Standing far away, Mason watches her from a distance and smiles when he sees that she likes it. Jesse looks around but can't find him. Even so, she realizes that he's somewhere nearby, and that's where the movie ends. What do you think? Was Mason right to stay away from Jesse in the end to keep her safe? Or should he have left his past behind and started a new life with her? Share your opinion in the comments.